I see the goals I have for myself and where I want to be in the future. And I look at those, when I don't want to get up, it's 5 in the morning and I want to stay in my warm bed. I think, you know, in the future, this is all going to be worth it.
Hi Ruby, welcome to In Their Boots. So do you want to tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
So my name is Rubi Sullivan. I'm 17 and I play for Sydney FC, but currently I'm playing in the NPL for Spirit.
And when did football begin for you?
Football began for me from a very young age. I would say from the moment I started walking, I was kicking a ball. From 4 I started playing, and then I was kind of just following my brother's footsteps. That's all I really wanted to do.
And when did it become more serious for you?
I think it's always been a goal for me to kind of pursue football as a career. I think from a young age I thought it was, something that looked so fun and interesting to do. And I think from under 9s when I started playing SAP, and then kind of just as I grew older, I just kept believing that this is something I wanted to do in the future.
You've been playing for Spirit for a while now. How has playing there benefited your career?
Playing for Spirit is like major part of the reason why I'm here today. I think I grew up playing with boys, so from under 9s up till 15s I was playing with boys, whether that was I was the only girl on the team or there was like 2 others. I think playing with the boys I've progressed so much. I think it's just a different kind of physicality, speed, tempo to the game that I just learned so much, and some of them are still like my best friends to this day. So I became super close with them.
And you played for Sydney FC and you started quite young. What was that experience like?
Yeah, I think, it was so good when I first got my contract. It was a super exciting time for me. I think definitely going in young was very intimidating. I didn't really know what to expect. I had never kind of been in those kind of environments before. But I learnt so much in my first year, and then I just continued learning.
How do you think you've grown since you started at Sydney FC?
I think I've grown in many different aspects in life. I think, I was 15 when I signed for Sydney, and, I've just grown as a player. I've learned so much from who I've played with, whether that's younger than me, older than me, just more experienced players. I've learned so much, and even as a person, I've become a lot more better socially. I can talk to people a lot easier, kind of like how I'm right now. But yeah.
Young Matildas, Australia. Do you remember that first call? What was that like?
Yeah, so I had only made 17s like a month prior to that. And so that was already a big achievement for me, and I was super stoked about that. And then the 20s camp, the extended list came out, and I realised I was on it, and I was just shocked. I didn't think, obviously I'd just been called in 17, so I was trying to get used to that environment there, and then to get caught up into 20s, it was a surreal experience, and to win the Nations Cup, my first experience there, it was so good.
What is your favourite part of national team camps?
Aside from just the quality of football and training with athletes who kind of have the same mentality as you and similar in age, I love seeing the girls so much. I think in Young Matildas we are such a close-knit family, and that's what makes us such a good team, is that everyone just gets along, and some of them are best friends.
And then what do you think would surprise people if they were to experience a Young Matildas camp?
I think something surprising would just be we can switch on very quickly. I think we know when we can have a giggle, have a laugh, and then we know when we need to be serious. So training, you could be laughing 1 second and then fighting with someone the next. It's just kind of all over the place.
You mentioned before that you're only 17. So how do you find balancing NPL, A-League, Young Matildas, as well as school and life as a 17-year-old? What's a week look like? A weekday look like?
Yeah, I try to balance as best I can. I think my dad and my mom, they drive into me that school is still very important, which I do agree with. I think, school is something I still want to do. I want to graduate, do my ATAR. A weekday for me, I wake up, depends if I have training in the morning, it's early starts for me. But even if I don't have training, it's early start. I go to school. It's about an hour drive for me now that I'm driving. Because I go to sports school, Fairfield. But it's super worth it. I think by the time I get home, I'm usually pretty tired. But try to do some schoolwork, catch up where I can because I do miss a lot of school for footballing commitments. But doing that, catching up with schoolwork, and then trying to find time, hang out with friends because they're super important to me.
Speaking on your friends, how have your friends and family been?
Massive, they play a massive role in my life. I think my family, they're my favourite people in the world. I think they've always supported me. My brother, he's always been the person I've looked up to, footballing wise. I have 2 other siblings, and they might not understand the sport as good, but they always support me, are always there for me. My mum and dad, all the nights they've driven me to training or sacrificed so much for me to get to where I am. I really appreciate it. And my friends, most of them play football. Most of them get what I go through, but even the ones that don't, they support as best as they can.
Why do you think it's worth the effort to get up all the early mornings, late nights, catching up from schoolwork? Why do you think it's worth the effort to keep up with all the things you do?
I think it's just I see the goals I have for myself and where I want to be in the future, and I look at those, when I don't want to get up, it's 5 in the morning and I want to stay in my warm bed. I think, in the future, this is all going to be worth it. I think that's just kind of what I look to.
What advice would you give to, there's a young girl watching who wants to follow a similar path?
You just have to be patient. I feel like everyone has different pathways, and I think it's very easy to compare yourself to others, the same age as you, doing better, doing this and that. But you kind of just have to stay focused on your own journey and make sure you keep loving it. I think all the top footballers I know, they love football. They want to play. They're excited to play, and that's what makes them so good. They're obsessed with the game. So I think loving it is very important.
And you spoke a little bit about your goals for the future. What excites you most when you're looking at the next few years?
I think what I want is just, become a regular in the A-League. I just completed my 2nd season, and it's up and down. You're playing some games, you're not playing the next, you sit on the bench for 90 minutes, and that's okay, it's all part of the journey. So I just want to continue working towards getting my minutes, become a starting player, and then hopefully eventually look to go overseas.
What's something that you would want people to remember you for?
I would just say remember you as someone that's very hardworking and encouraging. I think I'm a very supportive person on and off the field, and I think I try to implement that in how I am every day. Support my friends, support my teammates as best as I can.
Series is called In Their Boots. We've been talking about what it means to be in each person's boots. So what's it mean to be in your boots?
I love being in my boots. I think the pitch is somewhere, where I can just express myself without being judged, and it's somewhere where I can go if I, ever need to relax my brain or get a break from everything else, all the noise in the outside world. And I think once I step on the pitch, shut in my boots, I can just be free and kind of do what I love to do.
A few rapid fire questions for fun. So, what are 3 words your teammates would use to describe you?
I would say energetic, supportive, and I feel like some of them would say childish. The older ones would say childish.
Who is your biggest footballing
I'd probably say Rubi Sullivan from Arsenal. I think Arsenal's my favourite team. My whole family goes for them, and just watching what he does week in, week out for the team, and his passion, his aggression in the game, it's so interesting to watch.
If you were stuck on a desert island and could only have one teammate with you, and you want them to make sure you get home, who do you think you could rely on to help you get home?
What team?
Any team. You could pick one.
This is really difficult. I would say Monnie for cash, because she's like very smart and she just very gets like stucky. So I feel like she'd be very determined to get us home, and she wouldn't want to be stuck on that island with me for too long. So.
Getting to work. This last one's really funny. My sister actually came up with this one. I thought it was too funny not to use. But what animal would be the best footballer? If any animal would be.
I feel like seals have really good hook too. Have you seen them playing with like it on their nose and stuff? I feel like they would be pretty good at it.
Yeah. Anyway. So random. She said, I was like, that's so random. I was like, that's funny.
So funny.
Anyway, thank you so much for joining me on the booth, sharing your journey. And yeah. Look, I'll link in Rubi's social media so you can follow her.